it's a weird thing, because 20 years ago, definitely 30 years ago, nobody had video cameras really like they do now. But now everybody with their phones, everything documented. It's so normal now. But I just put this documentary out on Prime, it's called This Is the Tom Green Documentary. It's sort of a play on my old theme song of my show. This Is the Tom Green Show was the song, right?
Yeah.
So I went through like thousands of hours of video. I'm going back looking at 17-year-old me running around doing stuff, and it was actually kind of a pretty somewhat terrifying experience, actually, because it was like this opportunity to kind of tell the story of everything that happened with my show and everything that happened with my experience here in LA, and I wanted to kind of tell the story right, and I've got so much video. And combing through all of it was at times, somewhat kind of like I would be looking at myself like I'm looking at a completely different person. And I can't even believe, I'm finding things I don't even remember happening. And I'm looking at things that are just so completely bonkers and silly and ridiculous. And I'm like, whoa! Sometimes I couldn't look at the TV. I'm like, oh my, what was I doing?
That's how you made us feel.
Yeah, exactly. I was doing it to myself 20 years, 30 years later. And no, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody to go make a documentary about yourself. Definitely hire somebody to do that and never watch it. But no, it was fun because I wanted to tell the story the right way. But it was also kind of very surreal. But
was it hard to be true to yourself, making your own documentary? And no one should probably make your documentary except for you, because you're one of the rare cases, it feels like, that has documented themselves so much. You know, and I don't even know if I don't know if it seemed like an egotistical way. I don't think it ever came across like that of your footage. It just came across that you wanted to have control over of yourself. You wanted to put yourself out there. But was it hard to make a documentary and not want to make yourself the hero or something? Or I've never made a documentary before.
Yeah.
Or was there any of that in it? Or how do I make this?
Yeah. It's like the first scene of the documentary, I'm sitting with my mother and she actually says, "Are you really supposed to direct a documentary about yourself? I mean, can't you kind of whitewash that a little bit? Are you going to do that?" Yeah, I'm going to do that. So, but honestly, I wanted to be, I did not want to completely put a false story out there. So I think the hardest part was trying to figure out how to not be too self-deprecating. Oh, yeah. Because, you think, when you get to my age, you look back and you think, oh my God, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I hadn't done that, or I shouldn't have said that, or shouldn't have done that. And, I have a lot of those things, right? They're constantly rattling around in my head. And you start to think man, maybe this is a good way for me to go and just apologize for everything that I perceived that I've done wrong in my life, right? And then you have to kind of take a step back and go, well, wait a minute, that might just be in my head, So I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people about, people that I know, people that I'm close with, about the story of, really it's the story of the show, and takes us through the story of kind of creating the show and then building, before the show with my music, and then after the show with building a sort of a web TV studio, right, in here in Los Angeles, and it's sort of a telling of that story. But then I wanted to talk, a bit about some of the, personal sort of, things that I went through. I mean, I had cancer when I was on MTV, and I talked about that. I had, and then on top of that, there's just so much footage and so many weird little funny clips that only I know are the ones that people like or people have or haven't seen, and I kind of wanted to make sense of that all and piece it all together. I don't think anyone else would have been able to find it all,
Yeah.
So, but
was there a project that you kind of wanted to do over the years that you didn't really nail, or something that didn't happen? Was there something? Because you've just done so much stuff.
I mean, it's interesting because, in fact, that's part of what the documentary is about. Because when I was got into making the show when I was growing up, all I could even imagine myself doing was I wanted to be a talk show host. I wanted to do basically a show like David Letterman, right? Have guests on, and then I'd go out in the street and, be a nutcase, do goofy stuff, right? And I got to do that, a few times over the years. And, when those shows go away, initially when that happened, that was back in the day of MTV. The first show I stopped when I got sick, so it didn't actually get canceled, the Tom Green Show. But then when I did a nightly show. It kind of, when it kind of got canceled, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, that I could ever imagine, that I'm not going to be able to do a nightly talk show. This just was this was devastating to me. And as time marches on, and I look at all the things that I've done instead, into touring, doing stand up, or moving back to the farm, and everything in between, I kind of realized, man, I'm kind of glad that actually didn't work out, because if that show had been a big hit, then I would have been going down to the same studio every night for the last 30 years, and I wouldn't have gotten to do all these other things. So